welcome back to Crossing the Color Line. I'm Letha Barrett.
And I'm Pat Barrett.
And today, though, since the news has been so full of everything, we are going to talk about current events. And
what's happening today?
Yeah, what's happening today. So we thought we'd have a question for you to kind of bring you in and to have you like us and subscribe. And when you like us and subscribe, would you send comments and answers to the questions that we have today? And that would really help a lot, because we really want you to be involved in this rather than us just talking.
Suggestions would be good. Criticisms.
Right.
Sure.
To let us know how we can improve, etc., etc. So the first question today is, what current event in the past week stands out most in your mind? What current event of the last week stands out most in your mind? And I think the second question is, you see I'm reading because I want to get this right. When you picked an event, what made you choose that event? Why did you choose that event? And you can, go to the YouTube video and comment on it and let us know why you chose that particular event.
Well, I think for us, we ask ourselves that same question, of course. And for us, the events in Charlottesville, Virginia, stood out, and today we saw similar action in Seattle, except in Seattle the police had a bigger presence trying to keep these two groups apart. So we wanted to kick this around. We have a variety of things, and my wife and I have been talking about this. Our daughter, our son, and so forth, we've been talking about these.
And other friends.
And other friends, yeah. We just got together with a couple of my old colleagues from my school, and this morning we talked about some of this. So, for me, the issue that looms largest with all this is the response, or lack thereof, from the president. Mm-hmm. Because when things like this occur, one of the jobs of the president, I taught government for a while, one of the jobs of the president is to be the chief citizen of the country and express the most important things in being a citizen of the United States. And the crazy stuff going on in Charlottesville is something that we felt demanded, and many others agreed with us, demanded more of a response from the president than we got. So,
absolutely. Now we know there is, Pat always gets me about career. Now that was a big issue until the Charlottesville happened with the white supremacists. And we talk about, Pat and I and our family, and friends, we call it what it is. It is white supremacy. And, they prettied it up somewhat to say alt-right. Most people don't even know what alt-right is. So let's call it what it is. It is white supremacy. White people still wanted to keep, some white people, because I've been called on saying white people, some white people want to keep this country white. And it ain't going to happen. So all of the things that happened in Charlottesville reminded me of so much that has gone on in the past. So how much do you think we have grown?
I think that we were looking at some TV today, of course, and there were some comments made that actually in many ways our society is more segregated racially than it has been, which is kind of hard. It's almost counterintuitive, because like here in Chandler, Arizona, You look around, you go to the grocery store, you go to the car wash, you know, whatever, and you see people of different backgrounds. We were eating in the restaurant. There were 4 of us. 1 of us was white, 1 of us black, and 2 of us were Mexican American. And you look around the restaurant, which was Mimi's. Free product placement there. Maybe they'll give me a free meal. And you know, you look around the restaurant, you see the same thing. So you say, wow, how can it be more segregated? What you have to do is look at absolute numbers. The numbers of, and we brought this up before, the numbers of black school children who go to a predominantly black school where, you know, 95%
Or
of the
Mexican.
students. And I think at another point earlier I mentioned that my son was teaching in a district the last few years where 98% of the student body of 20,000 in the district were Hispanic. How does this happen? And I remember we asked that question, which is a good question. How does this happen? That gets us back into the historical things, but I wanted to continue looking at the issue of these white supremacists, which is, you know, that is what they are. We can argue about that, and you know, I welcome discussion. Bannon, and he's in the White House. Miller.
And what's the other guy?
Bannon and Miller and
is he Russian? The guy that wore the pen from.
Oh no, he is Hungarian.
Hungarian.
And
Okay.
yeah, getting
Gorka.
mixed up.
Is it Gorka?
Gorka, there you go. Good. And he has ties with fascist groups in Hungary. You got now see right away. I've been criticized a lot on this. I want to go into a lecture about the Iron Guard in Hungary during World War II, fascist organization, blah blah blah. But I won't do that. So yeah, this guy's in the White House, and this morning McMaster's had to deny that he sits on the National Security Council. He said, no, he doesn't do that, but he's an advisor. Mm-hmm. This is a guy that has ties to fascist groups.
And for me, he's in the White House.
Yeah.
Just like the racist presidents that we've had. And we have one in the White House right now. Okay? Donald Trump.
And, you know, you look at the history, right?
Yeah.
You look at his history of discrimination. These are not opinions. These are established facts. Now, the question is, how do you interpret all of that? Some people say, well, you know, that's not why I voted for him. I voted for him because he's going to bring back jobs. And someone else might say, well, blah, blah, blah. My point is, and we can talk about Korea, because the president has several jobs. He's, you know, Harry Truman had the sign on his desk, the buck stops here. It was up to Trump to step out and give us a solid foreign policy to deal with North Korea. It's up to Trump to step out and deal with this stuff that's going on in Charlottesville, now Seattle, Washington. Mm-hmm. I won't give you a background on that. You can just tune in the news and see what's going on.
Well, talk about that group that I hadn't heard of until today.
Me neither. It's called the Patriots Prayer.
Patriots Prayer.
Something like that. Apparently, they're a West Coast group that goes up and down the West Coast and staging rallies and so forth in what they consider liberal cities. San Francisco, so forth. Seattle, Portland, and so forth. And what I'd like for you people out there considering to consider is, why are those cities and most cities in the country more, quotes, liberal in their politics than the rural areas? California is a great example. The coast is very, very liberal, but you go into the interior of California, you get a different story. The same thing with Washington State. Seattle, coastline, yes, very liberal. You go inland, very, very conservative.
What do we mean by liberal? You know, I think that's a good question. What do we mean by liberal?
I have a great definition of liberal on my computer, which I could get right now, but I won't do that. I'll save it for another time. But there's a good definition of that. So what's happened with, Letha mentioned earlier, we have this new term called the alt-right.
Mhm.
What is it? These are magic tricks to try to distract you from what's going on. They're the same folks out there. You know, it's just like calling a liberal a communist. And I read a column today, Mark Fisher, I believe, was the author, who pointed out that many, many years ago, McCarthy turned this country inside out. See, age helps. We remember McCarthy. He turned the country inside out. People actually committed suicide. He was a senator.
I remember
Huh?
McCarthy.
What?
I just remember reading about McCarthy.
Well, I remember McCarthy because I was whatever. So, McCarthy's right-hand man was Roy Cohn,
Mm-hmm.
and guess who Roy Cohn mentored? Donald
Donald
Trump.
Trump.
Okay? There's the connection. Now, I sound like Glenn Beck, you know. There's the connection, all the arrows, it all comes together. But it is true. Roy Cohn was Donald Trump's mentor. Roy Cohn was the guy that taught McCarthy how to manipulate the press, how to manipulate people's. He was a U.S. senator. Don't want to get too erudite on you here, but he was a senator. He had the country in a state of fear,
Mm-hmm.
and he did this by making outrageous claims, outright lies, insulting reporters, telling the public that the reporters were all liars, and then he would approach a reporter he had just savaged and say, "Hey, let's go have a drink. You know, it's all just in fun and blah blah blah." Crazy making.
Same thing that's happening
and
today.
Trump is doing.
He was just joking.
What's the connection?
It was a joke.
What's the connection? Roy Cohn.
Fake news.
Yeah. So, now, at some point, we need to address the people who voted for Trump. Again, I had a wonderful article. 5 different groups, and they do not have a lot of stuff in common. Some of them are gun owners, some of them couldn't care less about guns, some of them are real religious, some of them couldn't care less about religion. They do not have a whole lot of stuff in common, but there's 5 separate groups that we can talk about. And what's going on? And how closely tied are they to the alt-right, to the white supremacists? Yeah. How many people feel that what's gone wrong with the country is that the minorities have taken over, the Democrats are catering to the minorities, blah, blah, blah. So, as I said, I think at one point, I married her 53 years ago, and I'm still waiting for that Negro check that's supposed to come from the government.
Hey, I'm waiting for my Negro check too. And in relation to Negro checks, there was a time, like people think that African Americans and other minorities are on quote unquote welfare. Well, when I was growing up, my parents could not get welfare.
Well, I told you that before,
Yeah.
right? In another episode, I said when I started working for the welfare department in 1966, workers who had been there quite some time said, "Oh, we just started giving welfare to minorities just a short time ago."
Yeah.
So anyway,
So we digress a bit.
Yeah.
We're back to Charlottesville and what happened there when the anti-Trump white supremacist groups.
what anti-Trump white supremacists?
No.
White supremacists
sorry.
are not anti-Trump.
No, I'm sorry, I got that mixed up. The Trump white supremacist group and the anti-Trump
Whites.
group, white supremacists, got together, and there was all of this chaos and fighting, and people died. Because of people had these strong feelings about who is taking over the country, and we are white, so therefore we should be the quote unquote supreme beings. And that is out there. And and we are seeing it everywhere. And David Duke, I want to give you a shout out. You said for Trump to look in the mirror and for him to recognize that it was white people that put him in the White House. Thank you, David Duke. I never thought I'd be thanking David Duke.
Amen, brother.
Yes. So,
Let me.
okay, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just wanted to. Now you made me forget it, but whose motivations do you want to look at? Do you want to look at the white supremacist what motivates them? Do you want to look at the anti-supremacist groups? What motivates them? And I was watching the thing in Seattle, and I got pretty upset with what I saw. A lot of the people, no, okay, that's wrong. Not a lot of the people, a few of the people, but
Right.
they were in the front lines. These are the anti-fascist, the anti-white supremacist groups, the so-called liberals, I guess. They were behaving terribly. One of them was
Taunting the
waving,
police. Taunting the police.
taunting the police, waving a communist flag around. You know, but then when they got it, the police finally cracked down on a few of them, and they sprayed them and all that. A little violence going on there. The news that we were watching kept looping that scene over and over and over. Meanwhile, there were a few shots of the leaders of the protest. They were right there in front, coming up to the police line and shaking hands with the police. Did they loop that over and over again? No. So what's going to remain in people's minds? It's those liberal, hippie, whatever people out there, the ones that support Black Lives Matter and wave a communist flag around. Those are the people that we love to hate. You know, they liberal scum, whatever they want to call them. Well, those people were giving them ammunition, frankly, by behaving the
Right.
way they were behaving. And you could tell, most of the people were just out there. These guys, they had their masks on, and they had dark glasses, and they were all set for battle. They wanted to fight. They wanted to be arrested. They wanted to stir up crap because they considered themselves whatever, you know, anarchists and you know, chaos
They want to
producers.
disrupt too.
Disruptors, that's the word I'm looking at.
Yeah.
They want to
Yeah.
disrupt everything,
Disrupt.
just like the Trump people
Right.
did. There's no difference between them, in my opinion. Now, that wasn't the whole crowd.
And that was a small group.
Yeah, it was a
But
small
the
group, but they were the
Trump
leaders.
people-
They were the leaders.
The Trump people, yeah, and
They were right out in
some
front.
of them were well. Maybe
Well,
they
it
weren't
was
the
a mixed
leaders,
bag, but there was
Right.
plenty of.
But the Trump people, the white supremacists, came. All of them came to create chaos, and
Yeah.
because
Well, that's-
that
yeah.
is what they.
That's their.
They
It's,
were-
it's an organization.
Right, it's an organization.
The counter protesters were not.
Right, and
you
it's
know,
called the what?
Patriots Prayer.
Prayer.
Patriots Prayer.
And I don't know what it's called that for. We need to research that much more. But again, for me, looking at what happened in Charlottesville reminded me, except the majority of those people were white, who were anti-white supremacists. And in the past, if you remember, the Martin Luther King marches and things like that, the water hoses, the dogs, John Lewis was beat almost to death, and blacks were killed just for being black, just like they're shot today just for being black. We call it driving while black. Or dying while black if you're a young black man. And so when I look at that, I am reminded of how the Klan, and I'm going to get into the Klan a little bit, because the Klan is white. Why is it that the Klan has been in existence since
Well, the new Klan since 1915,
since 1915?
around there.
Why is it that the Klan has not been wiped out completely? Because they are, in my opinion, white. Now, the police went in and killed the, what was the black group?
Panthers.
The Black Panthers. Read about Chicago, how they killed babies and women and everybody in Chicago. And when you talk about anger, and again, white people are angry because they feel the country's going in the wrong direction. I want some of these reporters, when these people say the country's going in the wrong direction, especially when Barack Obama was president, I never heard a reporter say, How is it going in the wrong direction?
It's one of the most maddening things in reporting.
Yeah. Name how it's going in the wrong
just tell
direction.
us, well, okay, what direction is
Okay.
that's wrong?
Right.
And-
And
yeah.
for now, can you tell us if you believe that Trump is doing what he's supposed to do, how's it going in the right direction? See,
So
there's
So again, we're back to the initial things, which is the initial questions rather. What is it that would cause you to believe whatever you selected as the major event of the week? What caused you to select that? Well, for us, we selected the events in Charlottesville, Virginia. And why did we select that? Because for me, she might be different. For me, it was a politician's favorite word, egregious, a terrible example of our president's, notice it's our president, have to admit that, our president's complete failure to respond in a way that would particularly put the stamp of disapproval on people who want the country to violate the basic principle, which we talked earlier, the salad bowl, the melting pot, the stew pot, where people come together and to some extent, greater, lesser extent, they kind of merge. We call it, the technical term is assimilation. They assimilate. My wife pointed out to me, hey, you know what? Blacks have been trying to assimilate for close to 300 years now.
Let's see, 396 to be exact.
Oh, okay, 396. Yeah, and they have been kept out. Again, my hang up here with age, sorry to say, we have so many young people, particularly watching something like YouTube, who do not remember what it was like to be able to watch TV all day long and never see a black face.
Right.
Blacks were kept complete. No matter who you had, Congress, the board of directors of IBM, it didn't matter. You never saw a black face. And I used to challenge my students, go into the library, which has physical copies of Life magazine. Life magazine was a major picture magazine for the United States, kind of like People is now, I guess. Go back to the 1950s and take a couple of issues and just leaf through them. See if you can find one black face. Okay,
Yeah.
it doesn't happen.
And now, again, leading into the Charlottesville thing and how white people are feeling so aggrieved, is that the word I'm looking for,
Yeah.
that many whites think, oh, minorities have affirmative action and they have this and they're just taking over, when that is, again, to me, projection. It's kind of like blacks were lazy when it was the white folk that were sitting on the porch, and it was blacks who were picking the cotton and doing the heavy lifting, etc., etc. But what the whites put out was those lazy blacks, and we have to beat them because they don't have common sense to do this or do that. And I'm going to digress a minute, Pat, because last week we were talking about Vernon Jordan, and Pat had remembered a story about Vernon Jordan.
You have to tell him who
Who?
Jordan is.
Well, you tell them who Vernon
No,
Jordan was.
are we about out of time here?
Okay.
Okay.
Vernon Jordan was.
Well, why don't we save that for next time?
Okay, we'll save that for next time. But it's really an interesting story, and kind of, again, we talked about quite a few things, but again, we want you to like us and subscribe, and please send us questions, and we will answer them next time, and because we really want you involved in this.
And the greatest thing about this so far is I finally found the beach ball my grandkids lost. Right here. Okay.
Goodbye.
Farewell. Our director has been taken aback.